And it looks like we're live. All right. So, welcome to the Memberverse podcast, where we interview experts in the fitness industry, gym owners, people who are doing great things, people who have been able to accomplish a good level of success, and want to share some of their insights. Today, I have a former client of ours, Zach Bodenhausen. Zach started with us with 0 members when he grand opened his gym, scaled it to about 450 members, and has recently sold his gym. So we want to chat a little bit about his successes that he's had there, the challenges, the things that he's learned, and also some of the things that I find to be most interesting, which is his mindsets around marketing. So I'd like to pass it over to Zach right now. Zach, would you mind just sharing a bit about your background, your story, how you even got into the fitness industry? Please share.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I appreciate you having me on, and definitely excited to talk about this. And so my background, I've been in fitness for about 15 years, but I've kind of come up through the corporate ranks at companies like 24 Hour Fitness and Shape Health Clubs. And, frankly, was pretty happy in those jobs, but then obviously COVID came along at some point. And so as with most people, you kind of reevaluate your situation and think about what could I be doing now? And seemed like a good time for us to actually branch out and start something on our own. So we found Burn Bootcamp, fell in love, really enjoyed Devin and Morgan and the team over there, and decided to open a location up in Northern California. We landed on Rocklin. And so we opened our location in about, I guess it was February of 2022. We ran it for a couple of years. My wife and I, like you said, we built it up to 450 or so members, and we were able to exit. And now we're kind of involved as advisory and help to the current owners.
Nice. And so I guess going back to the beginning of this, what were some of the initial challenges that you faced? Because you kind of opened it up, not necessarily in the heat of COVID, but not too
Yeah.
long after COVID. And you're in California. We're not one of those COVID-friendly states.
No, that's good. We kind of caught the tail end of it. But Burn was gracious enough to kind of give us some flexibility and delaying our opening a little bit. Yeah, obviously lots of challenges with COVID and opening up during that time. I think, along with those challenges, though, we did have some blessings, and that there were a lot of opportunities in real estate at the time. So we were able to come across a nice big open space that we were able to lease for, a pretty good price. And so that helped. But I'd say, challenge wise, we were focused on finding a place where we could work out indoors and outdoors as well. So we could take those workouts outside if we needed to. And obviously getting a little bit of a bigger space provided us the opportunity to space people out a little bit more when we were given the opportunity to actually work out inside. I think those were challenges. And then obviously, a big part of opening a gym successfully is the pre-sale. So we were really focused on making sure we could get those workouts in before the gym was actually complete. And having that outside space was just a huge blessing for us to be able to do that.
With all of your experience, Zach, do you have sales experience as well? Because big box gym world is very heavy in sales as well.
Yeah, no, I didn't have any sales experience. I kind of learned that all from Burn, and actually from you and your team. We learned that. I'd say my experience was more sitting behind a computer, crunching numbers on a spreadsheet. But when it came to talking to actual people, something I definitely had to learn and get better at.
Definitely had to get out of your comfort zone there.
Yeah, for sure.
And aren't you kind of right now also involved in the franchise space, but just completely different industry?
Yeah, I work for a company called Sky Zone, and we own and operate a bunch of trampoline parks across the country. So it has been interesting to see what the crossover is like. We recently started selling memberships at Sky Zone, and it's totally different business model despite being a very similar product. So I've learned a lot since selling the gym, and surprisingly enough, there is some crossover, but there's not a lot. It's like learning a whole new membership model again.
Mm-hmm. Were there any things that you took from the big box space that helped you when coming right into starting this franchise that you feel maybe gave you a little bit of a leg up with things?
Yeah, absolutely. I think at 24 Hour Fitness, the focus was always on the pre-sale when you opened a new gym, and just building up as many members as you possibly could. And at 24 Hour Fitness, we would actually go set up tents outside the gym while it was being built and just sell memberships to passerbys. And we'd go out and market it aggressively, and we'd be able to build up 1,000 plus membership pre-sale at those locations. And it was so instrumental in letting you open profitable, so
Mhm.
definitely took that mindset over to being a small business owner and a boutique fitness owner, and really focused hard on the pre-sale and making sure that process was totally dialed. And it was, and we were able to get close to a couple hundred members during our pre-sale, which, like you mentioned, was during that COVID time. So we felt good about that. We were able to open up, slightly in the black, and obviously grow that up over time. And obviously, we'll probably talk about our partnership with you guys, but incredibly instrumental in helping us get that done.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what a sigh of relief to be able to open up in the black at least and not in the red.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So like in that process of like opening the gym, like obviously we played a part with helping with the digital advertising. Did you apply like those like tabling events, like those strategies that you had learned like while all your years in big box to helping you have like generate as many leads as possible?
Yeah. It's interesting because obviously the way we market has changed a lot over time. When I started out at 24 Hour Fitness, digital marketing wasn't nearly as big as it is now. It was a lot more traditional marketing, commercials, billboards, obviously a lot of grassroots as well as getting out in the local community. But we really didn't have social media to lean into as much as we do now, and the digital marketing world has totally changed. So we leveraged some of those tactics for sure. I mean, to the extent that we could, we got out into the community. Obviously, it was a little tough at the time with COVID. Started knocking on doors, looking for businesses to partner up with, looking for some potential companies that we could roll out corporate memberships with, and really tap into their employee bases. But to be honest, by far the best bang for our buck was that digital marketing world, particularly social media, and really tapping into that. And that's where, working with Aaron on your team and Jaina at the time, just an incredible wealth of knowledge. And to be honest, I didn't really know anything about that world until we started getting ready for this opening process, and just seeing the type of lead flow we could get at the time for minimal investment. Honestly, we made the decision to invest a vast majority of our marketing budget and time just straight into digital, and we probably could have done a little more on the traditional side of things, but really just focusing on this in this one area, we were able to have a really successful grand opening. And honestly, I don't think we would have been anywhere close had we focused more in other areas.
I think, in the couple of years that we've worked with you, one thing that's definitely stood out is like there was never a fear to spend, to put money into advertising. I think the lowest we've ever seen you probably spend during all that time may have been like $50 a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which for some people that's the high end for what they're doing. So you've never been afraid to like put the money into that. And I think, for some gym owners out there, they tend to look at, marketing as being a big expense or being an expense for the business. I don't think that's the belief that you have, right?
No, for sure. No, I'm very much a numbers guy. I've been an analyst my whole life, and I got a degree in engineering. So the way I look at marketing is it's an investment, right? And with digital marketing, it's so easy to see the numbers and kind of run through the simulations and figure out if I invest, $100 here, it's going to turn into, $300 down the line. And just to give you some specific numbers, we started working with you guys, and I'd say on average, we probably invest about $100 a day in marketing. And we know very clearly that if we invest $100 a day, we're probably going to get 2 to 3 leads. And Aaron on your team can tell us exactly, your cost per lead is $30, call it. Mm-hmm. So we know that if our cost per lead is $30 and we convert 1 and 3 leads to a member, which we do know that number, we track it very closely, that's essentially $90 we just paid for a member. And then we also know that member is going to stay and pay us, $2,200 over the life of their membership. We just invested $90 for a $2,200 membership. I think that's an exchange we'd make all day long. So our point of view is let's ratchet up that investment. Let's get those leads as high as possible, knowing that the return on that investment is just going to be astronomical, and let's just spend as much as as we feel comfortable budgeting the very high end, and really maximize those leads, because the math is simple. Even if you get that lead cost in the 60, 70, $80 range, it still makes sense to be spending, in my opinion, max budget on marketing. So it's the math side of it makes it incredibly comfortable and really easy to pull the trigger on that, $4,000 a month investment.
Yeah, that's I think most people, if they hear a 60, 70, $80 a lead, they lose their mind, right?
Yeah.
Um, but you're able to look at it from probably scaling out and really looking at the numbers. You're like, no, this still works, right? What is like, what was that maximum threshold for you to say like, okay, it's still going to work at this level, like this
Yeah.
ROI makes sense.
Honestly, we really relied on Aaron to kind of tell us, Aaron on your team, to kind of tell us when the lead flow was slowing down, because really for us it was more about the number of leads we were getting rather than the cost per lead. But at some point, if you're paying $100 a day and you're getting 3 leads, or you're paying $400 a day and getting 3 leads, the math might still work, but you'd rather pay the $100 a day for the 3 leads. So we'd kind of rely on Aaron to tell us, hey, like, this is where the lead flow is starting to slow down a little bit, so we maybe want to scale it back to $100, and sit there for a while, and then we track the lead flow at that investment for a while and make decisions to move up or down. Because obviously you want to spend as minimal as possible for that maximum amount of leads. So
Yeah.
Aaron was very helpful in that.
Can you walk us through like your for somebody maybe like watching this right now, it's like, how do I like create a simple system like kind of how Zach is doing, so I can like look at my numbers and give myself the ability to feel, because I don't think most people would feel comfortable with being spending multiple $1,000s a month when it's not like a big promotional period. Because I know one thing, you guys, it's like it didn't matter if it was the middle of December, November, where these are the slowest time periods. It's like pedal to the metal still, right? Even if the cost is higher, it's like, how can somebody like quickly like figure out like what number should I look at so I can really start to figure out this kind of stuff and feel good and safe about like pushing stepping on the gas pedal with my spend here.
Yeah, so there's really a couple numbers if you wanted to start out at the basic level that you need to understand. And one is obviously how many leads are you getting a month. And so we use MindBody. I would imagine most people in the space do use MindBody. And there's a number of reports in there you can get at, and some that show your leads. So we were going into MindBody and just pulling out lead data into Excel and just tracking it day by day. Like Monday we got 3 leads, Tuesday we got 2 leads, Wednesday we got 4 leads. So you can understand that data. And then in the same spreadsheet, we were tracking the number of members that would come in. So those were visits, and then the number of members that would join. So in one day, I could see we had 4 leads, we had 3 visits, we had 2 joins. If you add up all the days over the course of the month, you could very clearly get a good picture of what your ratios are. So we can understand it. And at our burn, we got about 35% of our leads to actually end up joining. So our conversion of leads to join was 35%. And therefore, it's really easy to figure out that it takes 3 leads to get 1 member. And my leads cost $30 each. So that's $90 for 1 member. And that member is worth $2,200. That's another spreadsheet that you need to build out to figure out that part of the equation. But even if those members were only worth, $500, the math would still work.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that some owners out there have what I think is really brilliant in what you're doing is that you're able to really look at, it's how much this person is going to bring to my business over a year, their lifetime, which might be a year and a half, whatever it may be. Why do you think like owners might struggle with being able to look at things over the long term, and maybe a lot of them pay attention to like, what did I get this month out of this person?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think if you look at it at the month level, you could potentially be investing $100 in marketing for $100 in that month. And maybe those numbers don't make sense. But if you extrapolate it over 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to 12, that's when you start getting that compounding effect. And the more you invest early, obviously the more compounding you're going to have down the line. But to your point, it definitely requires a little bit of faith in the math at first, because you're investing money and you're not seeing the return on it for, at least a couple of months. And that can be a scary thing if you have a $3,000 expense on your P&L, and that month you didn't get the return to fully cover that $3,000. That could certainly be a scary thing, and that can turn you off from wanting to spend that much again in future months, even though the math tells you that's what you should do.
So like if somebody is trying to like take that leap, it's like, what would you tell them? It's like, hey, give yourself this kind of time frame.
Yeah.
You really start to see the compounding effect of this.
Yeah, I'd say you got to set yourself a budget, and just tell yourself you're going to do this for 3 months, and you're going to do it during a good time of year for fitness, which could basically be any time between January and June, or again in Q4. And you need to track how many members you had joined during that, and then the actual revenue you gained from those members over the 3 months, and then compare that to your marketing spend. And you'll start to see it in as soon as 3 months. Obviously, I know a lot of people aren't willing to go out and like risk a full year of doing this before going back and seeing the results. So I think 3 months is kind of the minimum you want to commit, and you're going to have to be willing to go invest, $10,000 in this over the course of 3 months, or somewhere along those lines. And it's going to be, in your mind, it might be a bit of a risk, but to be successful, you're going to have to make that investment in the marketing. It's just the best way to do it.
Did you just figure that out like all on your own? Did you have like a mentor that kind of told you, hey, you should do it this way? Or is it something that you pulled from your previous roles? Like, where did that like psychology around this come from?
I mean, honestly, when we went to Burn University, Devin, the founder over there, he mentioned, it's like, we're going to require you guys to invest $10,000 upfront in marketing. And I think a lot of people hear that. It's like, yeah, that sounds nice, but I'm not really going to do that. That's a lot of money. But we actually did it, and we started to learn. And then as you kind of progress, you can see the numbers flowing through the way that they're supposed to, and it gives you more confidence to continue to do that. And like you mentioned, we got to the point where we were almost exclusively marketing this way. We were able to build up to 450 in a couple of years, and exit the business as per the plan. So it's a very effective way to get to where you want to get as a gym owner. And also, marketing this way really allows you to kind of dial in your forecasts for where your revenue is going to be in future months, because it's very predictable.
Were you able to pull anything from your experience, like working with like, Sky Zone franchise? Was there anything that you observed over there from like the top locations that have helped you potentially over here? I know it's not a complete, parallel, but there's probably like certain business strategies or observations that it maybe helped you reaffirm decisions you were making in your gym.
Yeah, it's the owners that are willing to take a little bit of a risk and kind of put themselves out there and try something that doesn't feel comfortable, that ultimately are going to reap the benefits. We had a new Sky Zone park open just very recently, and we're talking about a different stratosphere of numbers here, but they were able to open with 11,000 members in their location. They were instantly one of probably the biggest dues base in the whole company from day one, and had already become well in the black on the very first day that they opened. Wow. It was amazing.
Is that not typical in that space where people immediately open in the black, or are they kind of like trying to get there as quickly as possible?
It's getting the break even period is getting shorter and shorter and shorter, but it's certainly not common to be there on day one like they were.
Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming in the case there, they really pushed like the advertising spend during that time, the marketing.
They really pushed it, and now they're actually getting phone calls from every other franchisee. Like, how do you do this? And in my mind, that's the way you get the most buy-in, is if you can get a franchise partner to be successful doing something. The other franchise partners are going to listen to that person way more than they're going to listen to HQ. So
how much does that kind of thing like help there for just building momentum in the business? I'm sure you've seen, like, in your experience, kind of like franchisor-ish. You've seen ones that have not gotten that momentum,
Yeah.
gotten as much in the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, if you're selling, if you sell 20, well, I guess call it 50 memberships in a month, you could not sell anything for 4 months and you could still make money in all of those 4 months. But if you're just selling, if you sell 50 day passes or 50, 1 month passes in that first month, and then you stop selling, you're not going to make anything for 3 months. So it's just that mindset of, I have to invest now. I'm building a recurring base that's going to grow exponentially over time. If I do this, I can focus my attention on keeping my members longer, and that's how I'm going to make even more money over time. That's kind of the mindset you have to have.
Did you ever have months where the numbers didn't quite work, and like, how did you manage that psychologically?
Yeah, no, we never did. I mean, we did have months where we had more people cancel than join, and I think anybody that's been in the fitness space for a while will recognize that there's some months in the back half of the year that are a little bit slow. But there was never a month where we didn't add more total lifetime value revenue than we had cancel.
When you're, you said your LTV was about $2,200. Based
Yeah.
on your math in that scenario, like, what was the most you'd be willing to spend to acquire a member?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, based on the math, you'd be willing to go pretty high. And we never got to that amount. I mean, you'd be willing to go well into the hundreds. What happens though when you get that high is you're spending $200 for the same number of leads as you would if you spent 100. So that's kind of the governor at that point. Is just you're spending money that's essentially not getting you anything incremental on the leads front.
Yeah, like if you spent you're at the point where like spending $100 a day versus $200 a day is still getting me the same exact 3 leads.
Yeah. So that's where then we rely on Aaron and your team to kind of help us understand, like, where is that inflection point that we're not getting any more leads for the spend. And that's what I don't understand quite as well, but fortunately there are people that do.
Yeah. So assuming the leads are coming in, but incrementally, the more you spend, that cost is going up. Maybe it's first $30 lead, then it's 40, then it's 50, right?
Yeah.
Is there at least a certain ratio? Like, let's say, for example, here your LTV is $2,000. Are you willing to spend $500 to get a 4-to-1 return? Does that still work?
It does. I think then you also start running into the question as well, is that money, can I get a better return on that money somewhere else? And then you have to consider that as an option. We never kind of hit that threshold, but it's obviously the return on your advertising spend is going to go down as that goes up, as that cost goes up. So you just have to evaluate your other investment options at that time if that cost gets really high.
Yeah, but if the numbers work, keep on pushing, right?
You keep on pushing. I mean, there's no reason not to. It feels kind of weird to be spending that much money for a lead, but at the end of the day, if the math works, you go with it. In my opinion,
there's a compounding effect of the math, right? Like maybe 1 month isn't as great, but it's like if you're continuously signing up 15, 20 members, it's like their recurring membership dues start really piling up. So it's like the whole system starts to work from there. But then on the other side, if you're pushing out that much advertising, you're spending $3,000 a month. There's another compounding effect that's happening, which is the compounding impression effect, like where people are just constantly seeing you and seeing you and seeing you. And I think personally, like, that helps to justify also, because for us, even as a business ourselves, like, we'll advertise in months where we're not doing as good, but I know that it's creating this awareness in the marketplace about us. And so when the time is right, it's like you are now the person that's top of mind for that consumer at that point in time. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. And I can't even tell you how many times we've had members come in and say, I like, every time I get into my Instagram, I see you guys. I've seen you guys, 25 times now, and I figured I might as well just come in and check it out. So you're 100% right. Like, just that presence within the market and kind of being top of mind, so helpful. Like when January rolls around and people are thinking about which gym do I want to join. And then the other piece is, we don't even factor referral value into our lifetime value calculations. But obviously, the more people you get in, the bigger that referral base is going to be as well, which is a huge part of the business.
Yeah, then it really starts to multiply.
Mm-hmm. Crazy. Yes.
Yeah. So, for gym owners who are hesitant about trying to invest heavily in marketing, what advice would you have for them to like start trying to take the steps, like how to shift their mindset around some of this stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'd say look at where you're spending your money and see if there's a place where you could pull some dollars out of and reallocate into the marketing line of the budget. I'd say that's where I'd start. That way you're not impacting your total spend, but you are ramping up that mix of marketing spend a little bit. So maybe you're planning on hosting a big event somewhere, or you're spending X amount of dollars to have a booth at a race. I'd say take that money, put it into marketing, just kind of see what happens, give it a couple months, and go from there. And don't be afraid. I mean, all the successful gyms are doing this to some extent. So you kind of just got to be a little bit bold and go out there and give it a try.
Mm. Did you place it sounds like also part of your emphasis was not necessarily a focus on really just, I think a lot of people focus on the first metric, which is like, what is my cost per lead, right?
Yeah.
And you're looking much more at like cost per acquisition. Is there, like,
Yeah.
would you say like you shift from focusing, from paying attention to this, or like what were some of those things you'd say like to shift your focus from?
Yeah. I'd say the cost per acquisition is the most important metric, along with the understanding what the lifetime value is of our members. And I think a common mistake in people looking at the lifetime value of their members is looking at how much they've paid you to a certain date without taking into account how much they're going to continue to pay you into the future.
Hmm.
So sometimes we look at lifetime value and we cut it off based on what day it is today, and this member's been with us for 6 months, but you have to be able to project like that member is going to stay with us for 9 months or 12 months or 18 months and give us X amount of dollars over that period.
Hmm. I didn't realize that a lot of owners would potentially do that. They're just only looking at what the person's paid versus like what do the law of averages say about these owners, or excuse me, about
Yes.
clients?
Yeah. So I think a quick and easy way to figure out what your average monthly tenure of a member is to figure out, if you figure out the percentage of members that leave your gym in a month. So let's call it 5, and you take the 5% and you take the inverse of that. So 1/5%, you get the average number of months that a member is going to stick with you. Then you can multiply that number of months by your average dues, and that'll give you your lifetime value.
And then you feel empowered, right? Now I know.
And then you feel empowered. Now we know.
I love it. If you were to open a second gym, like
Yep.
what are some of the lessons that you've learned over this time, some of the simplest things that you would do differently in opening a second location?
Yeah. So I think I'd have even more of an extended pre-sale period. I'd get as many people in the door trying it out as I possibly could. We've had tremendous success advertising with the word free and getting leads in the door with the word free. So I do that and really lean into some sort of offer before we open to really build up that pre-sale base. I think we did a decent job. It was our first gym. I think we could have leaned into it even harder and really built up that base, because we're talking about if you sell 100 memberships pre-sale, you're talking about $20,000, call it, worth a recurring revenue. If you could bump that up to 200, now you're at $40,000 recurring revenue. You just increase your annual income by $240,000. So it's worth the investment.
So start earlier, spend more.
Yeah. Yes.
Very, very simple. How much did you guys? Because I think one of the things that really dramatically is going to also impact your cost per acquisition is your sales process, right? If you're converting at 10% versus 40%, it's going to make a dramatic difference. How much focus did you guys put on to like making sure that, because a certain part of the numbers are the acquisition costs that you can actually have a direct impact on. How much did you guys put an emphasis on like working on sales?
You hit the nail on the head. I think once you feel comfortable spending the money, you're getting leads in the door. Then you just need to start working on that conversion aspect. To backtrack a little, I think before you can convert them, obviously they have to come in the door. So you need a good process for getting leads to walk in the front door. And I think, that's where your team was tremendously helpful, is you do offer that service to help get those leads into the door. And then once they do get in the door, how do you take your conversion from 30 to 33 to 35 to 37%? Obviously there's a lot of training and role playing that goes in with the team. But also pricing and promotion. Like people want a deal. People want a promo. So you have to have something, in my opinion, you have to have something all the time that's attractive. It gets people just that little bit of excitement to kind of push them over the edge and join. We had a standing offer all the time, and we would vary the offer, but we would always have a kind of a closing offer for anybody who walked in the door that day. And that was incredibly helpful.
Did you incentivize your teams like with any kind of like sales bonuses or anything like that for converting sales?
We didn't have a standing incentive, but we did lots of sales contests and what we would call spiffs from time to time, where we would pay X amount of dollars for a membership sold. The problem with building in like a permanent incentive program is now that's going to have to be budgeted for every single month. So if there was ever a time where you wanted to peel that back, it's difficult. Whereas if you make it a contest or limit it to a certain amount of time, you can kind of add it and take it out as the business needs dictate.
Okay. So I guess my last question here for you, Zach, is that there's definitely been other gym owners who've sold their gym. There's been people who have sold it, but it hasn't been profitable. Obviously, 450 members, the gym was doing well. To anybody that's like would like to accomplish the same thing that you accomplished, like what advice would you give to them in terms of trying to successfully scale this and get into a position where I'm selling this profitably and making money off the sale here?
Yeah. So I think obviously you want to not be afraid to invest in your business early and often. Really getting that big, strong lead so that, like we talked about, the referrals will start to take over and lead to that organic growth. I think investing a lot early and often is the key. And then, obviously when you build up a big base of members, you need to take care of them. So just kind of popping your head in the gym as much as you can, getting to know your members by name, getting to know your team, and it's just spending time talking to them and letting them know that you care. I think those are the best ways to really improve that retention and keep those members there as long as possible. But I would say, the formula is not complicated. The way you drive members into your gym is by investing in marketing that brings in the leads. You get them to join. You can build that member base up, and at some point you're going to be generating positive EBITDA, and you're going to be able to exit. If you have a business that's generating positive EBITDA, somebody's going to be interested, and you're going to be able to exit.
I love it. All right. Well, Zach, this has been awesome. I really love your mindset around numbers and how you view the numbers of the business, because I think it actually becomes an empowering tool for you, where for others, if they're not doing that, it actually disempowers them and could lead to the eventual like slow going backwards. I really appreciate the insights you shared today. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, Zach, and wants to learn a bit more about how you did things, how can they maybe get a hold of you?
Yeah, you could reach out. I'm actually taking a little bit of a hiatus from Instagram. Just been in there a ton since we opened the business. But I'd say by email, Zach.Bodenhausen, Gmail is where you can get me. And I'd love to talk to anybody who wants to chat it out a little bit more.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Zach.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. I enjoyed it.